Close your eyes and imagine the excitement of capturing a moment and holding it in your hands just minutes later. The year is the late 1950s and early 1960s, and the Polaroid instant camera has just arrived, revolutionizing photography. Unlike traditional cameras that required rolls of film and long waits at the photo lab, this compact marvel allowed families to see their pictures almost immediately, magic in the palm of your hand. Children laughed as they posed with friends, siblings goofed around, and parents captured candid moments around the house or in the backyard. After pressing the shutter, you'd watch the photograph slowly develop in front of your eyes, colors appearing like tiny bursts of life on a white square. There was a sense of wonder in every click, the anticipation, the surprise, and the joy of seeing your memory materialize instantly. Polaroid cameras weren't just toys, they became essential tools for documenting everyday life. Families recorded birthdays, picnics, and holidays. Teens captured moments with friends at the local diner or soda fountain. Couples photographed first dates, and parents preserved snapshots of children's first steps. Unlike traditional photographs tucked away in albums, Polaroid prints could be handed around immediately, shared and admired, making every gathering more interactive and memorable. The cameras themselves were sleek and stylish, often featuring bright colors and simple designs that added to their charm. Each photograph, a small square bordered in white, became an instant keepsake, a tangible memory that could be taped to the fridge, slipped into a wallet, or pinned to a bulletin board. In an era before digital screens, this tactile experience made memories feel alive and present. By the late 1970s and 1980s, Polaroid technology evolved, but the magic of those early instant cameras never faded. For anyone who grew up with them, the sight of a square photograph slowly appearing brings back a flood of nostalgia, a reminder of simpler times when capturing a moment was a small ceremony, full of anticipation and joy. So next time you see an old Polaroid camera or stumble upon a vintage print, imagine the excitement of that first click, the photograph emerging in your hands and the smiles it brought. It wasn't just photography, it was an instant connection to life, family, and the fleeting magic of everyday moments. Close your eyes for a moment and picture this. It's a quiet morning in 1950s America. The sun hasn't fully risen, the streets are still hushed, and in the distance, you hear the soft rattle of glass. That sound wasn't random. It was the milkman making his rounds, carrying a wire crate filled with shining glass bottles of fresh milk. For families back then, this wasn't just a delivery service. It was part of the rhythm of life. Every household had a small metal box by the front door, or sometimes right on the porch steps. That's where the milkman would place the bottles, still cool to the touch from the early morning chill. Kids would rush out in their pajamas, excited to be the first to grab the milk before breakfast. And nothing compared to the taste. The cream rising to the top, thick and rich, waiting to be stirred into a bowl of cornflakes or poured into a steaming cup of coffee. But milk delivery wasn't just about convenience. It carried a sense of community. The milkman often knew every family on his route, greeting neighbors by name, sometimes even slipping a chocolate milk bottle in for the children as a special treat. For mothers juggling housework or fathers rushing off to their jobs, it was one less thing to worry about. You didn't run to the supermarket, you trusted the knock on your door and the bottles waiting outside. And those bottles themselves told a story. Made of thick glass, reusable and sturdy, they had the dairy's name etched right on them. Once emptied, families rinsed them out and set them back in the box to be collected the next day. Nothing wasted, nothing thrown away. In many ways, it was a simple, sustainable system we've lost today. By the late 1960s and into the 1970s, though, supermarkets began to replace the milkman. Plastic jugs and cardboard cartons slowly pushed the clinking bottles into memory. But for anyone who grew up with that early morning sound, the gentle clatter of glass on the porch, it remains a symbol of a slower, warmer time. So the next time you open a plastic gallon from the store, just imagine the charm of those glass bottles lined neatly by the door, waiting for a family's breakfast table. It was more than milk. It was a daily reminder of trust, connection, and home. Imagine a time when communication wasn't instant, and every phone call carried a little ceremony. The year is the 1950s, and on the wall of nearly every American home hangs a rotary telephone, a sleek, round device that seems simple today, but back then was a portal to the outside world. To make a call, you lifted the receiver, waited for the dial tone, and carefully placed your finger in the numbered hole, rotating the dial all the way around before letting it snap back. Each turn made a satisfying click, a rhythm that echoed in the quiet of the house. For children, dialing the phone was both a challenge and a game. One wrong move could mean starting over, or worse, dialing the wrong number and hearing a stranger's voice on the other end. But adults embraced it with patience. There was something grounding about the tactile feel of the dial, the small effort it took to connect with someone far away. Long-distance calls were a treat, often reserved for important occasions, because each minute was precious and expensive. The phone wasn't just about talking, it was a centerpiece of the home. In living rooms and kitchens, its presence reminded everyone that family and community were just a ring away. Teenagers would sneak quick calls to friends, hushed conversations filled with giggles. Mothers coordinated errands, fathers confirmed business details, and neighbors sometimes phoned each other just to check in. The rotary phone created a rhythm to life, a slow-paced connection that made every conversation feel intentional. Unlike today's endless notifications, calls back then demanded attention and focus. There was no redial button, no speakerphone, just you, your voice, and the person on the other line. The occasional misdial became a shared laugh, and waiting for the line to be free built anticipation. Phones carried personality. They were link not just between people, but between moments, places, and memories. By the late 1970s and 1980s, push-button phones began replacing rotary dials, speeding up connections and making life easier. Yet for those who grew up twisting those round numbered discs, the sound of a rotary click still evokes a sense of nostalgia, a reminder of simpler times, slower conversations, and the joy of human connection in its most deliberate form. The next time you glance at your sleek, modern phone, pause for a moment. Imagine the tactile thrill of placing your finger in that first hole, listening to the satisfying clicks, and knowing that each call was more than communication. It was an experience. Step back into a small-town street in 1950s America. The sun is shining, the air carries the faint smell of fresh bread from the bakery, and at the corner stands the local general store, a bustling hub of the community. Its wooden shelves are stacked high with goods, but it's the penny candy jar that draws the children like a magnet. For just a single cent, you could buy a tiny treat, a sweet reward that felt like a treasure in your small hands. Kids pressed their noses against the glass jars, eyes wide at the colorful array of gumdrops, licorice, chocolate kisses, and bright little hard candies. Each choice is a small adventure. Do you pick the fruity red candy, the sticky taffy, or the chewy chocolate? The shopkeeper, familiar with every child by name, greets them with a smile, sometimes slipping an extra piece into the bag for good measure. But the general store wasn't just about candy. It was a place of connection, where neighbors stopped to chat, catch up on the news, or trade stories. Fathers purchased tools for the week's work. Mothers picked up household essentials, and everyone shared a moment in the warmth of the small-town community. The candy jars were the sweetest part of this ritual, a simple delight that brought laughter and joy to every child. There was something magical about the affordability and accessibility of penny candy. It made indulgence small but memorable, teaching children the joy of choice and the excitement of a tiny reward. It was a time when money was scarce, yet happiness was abundant, and a single cent could create lasting memories. By the 1960s and 1970s, supermarkets and mass-produced candy aisles began to replace the charm of these local general stores. The personal touch, the colorful jars, and the joy of choosing your treat in the presence of a friendly shopkeeper became a memory of a simpler era. So next time you unwrap a candy bar or see a retro sweet shop, imagine those small-town general stores, jars brimming with penny candy, and the smiles of children clutching their treasures. It wasn't just candy, it was community, childhood delight, and a glimpse of a world that moved a little slower and felt a lot warmer. Picture a warm summer evening in 1950s America. The sun is just setting, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange. Families pile into their cars, station wagons packed with blankets, popcorn, and soda, and head toward the local drive-in theater. Unlike today's multiplexes, the drive-in was an experience, a night under the stars where movies came to life right in your own car. As you pull in, the neon sign flickers, welcoming you to a magical evening. The projection screen looms ahead, massive and bright, while the scent of buttered popcorn drifts through the air. Cars of all shapes and sizes, classic Chevys, Fords, and Cadillacs, line up in rows, each family claiming their perfect spot. Speakers hang on metal poles, and you carefully hook them onto your window, adjusting the volume just right. It's more than watching a film, it's a shared ritual. Teens clutch each other's hands, stealing glances in the dim glow of dashboard lights, while kids munch happily on candy and soda. Mothers chat quietly with neighbors, catching up on the day's events, and fathers settle back, tipping their hats, savoring the rare evening off from work. The atmosphere is cozy, communal, and carefree, a snapshot of a simpler time when entertainment didn't mean rushing or long lines. Some nights bring double features, cartoons before the main film, and even occasional sing-alongs. Drive-ins weren't just for movies, they were a social hub. You could meet friends, celebrate birthdays, or have a first date with all the privacy of your own car, yet still be part of the bustling crowd. Every honk, laugh, and rustle of popcorn added to the charm. By the late 1970s and 1980s, rising real estate costs, indoor theaters, and home video slowly pushed drive-ins into nostalgia. Yet for anyone who experienced them, the memory is unforgettable, a combination of community, romance, and the sheer magic of watching a story unfold beneath the open sky. So next time you pass a closed drive-in lot, picture the cars lined up, the smell of popcorn in the air, and the screen glowing against the night. It wasn't just a movie, it was an evening of connection, wonder, and a uniquely American slice of life that we'll never see again. Close your eyes and imagine the mid-1950s, when families were embracing the convenience of modern living. The kitchen was a place of innovation, and one of the era's most iconic inventions was the frozen TV dinner. Served in a shiny aluminum tray, these meals promised convenience without sacrificing a sense of home-cooked comfort. For many households, it was a glimpse into the future, a perfectly portioned dinner ready to pop straight into the oven. The aluminum trays themselves were part of the charm. Each compartment held a different component of the meal, a main dish, vegetables, and a dessert, often separated by a gleaming divider. Children peeked over the counter, excited to see familiar favorites like turkey with gravy, mashed potatoes, and corn, all neatly packaged together. Mothers appreciated the time saved, allowing them to focus on other household chores or enjoy a rare moment of rest. Fathers came home from work to a meal that was hot, quick, and surprisingly satisfying. But the TV dinner was more than just convenience. It was a cultural phenomenon. Families would gather around the television, tray in hand, enjoying a new kind of shared experience. Instead of formal sit-down meals, the aluminum trays allowed everyone to eat while watching the latest show, blending entertainment with dinner. It was a subtle shift in American life, marking the rise of television as the centerpiece of family evenings. There was also a sense of novelty in opening that frozen package. The aroma of roasting meat and vegetables filled the kitchen, hinting at the magic happening inside the oven. The crisp edges of the aluminum tray were a tactile reminder that this meal was a small miracle of modern ingenuity. For kids, it was fun. For parents, it was practical. And for everyone, it represented a tiny taste of progress. By the 1970s and 1980s, TV dinners evolved. Plastic trays replaced aluminum, and convenience foods became more varied. Yet for those who remember the clinking trays sliding into the oven, the frozen TV dinner remains a nostalgic icon, a symbol of a simpler era when technology met tradition, and dinner could arrive in a shiny little package, ready to be enjoyed straight from the tray. Next time you see a retro aluminum tray in a vintage ad, imagine that warm smell wafting through the kitchen, the family gathered around the television, and the excitement of a complete meal delivered in a small metallic wonder. It wasn't just dinner. It was a slice of American history, preserved in foil. Imagine a cozy evening in 1950s America. The sun has set, and the household is bathed in the warm glow of a single lamp. The centerpiece of the living room isn't the television, because most homes don't have one yet, but a wooden radio, polished and proud, sitting on a side table or built into a cabinet. Families gather around it, settling into chairs and sofas as the familiar crackle of the speaker fills the room. Radio shows are about to begin. Perhaps it's a thrilling detective drama, a comedy that leaves everyone laughing, or a musical program featuring the latest hits. Children press their faces forward, listening intently, while parents sip warm tea or coffee, enjoying a rare moment of shared relaxation. Every voice from the radio sparks imagination, creating scenes in the mind far more vivid than any screen could provide. For families, these nightly gatherings aren't just entertainment, they're a ritual. Conversations from the day pause, chores are momentarily set aside, and everyone becomes part of a collective experience. Brothers and sisters whisper predictions, share laughs, and react to plot twists together. Parents smile knowingly at each other, grateful for a few peaceful minutes amidst the busy routines of life. Even neighbors sometimes join in, leaning over fences or doors to share in the excitement. The radio brings the outside world into the home, connecting towns, cities, and distant places through stories, music, and news. It's a tool for imagination, a source of comfort, and a thread that binds the family together. The experience of listening becomes a shared memory, one that will linger long after the broadcast ends. By the 1960s and 1970s, television gradually takes over as the central entertainment hub. But for those who grew up with the radio, nothing compares to the anticipation of tuning in each evening, gathering around the familiar device, and feeling connected, not just to the stories on the airwaves, but to each other. So next time you hear a crackling old radio, picture a family leaning close, smiling and laughing together. These nightly radio gatherings weren't just a way to pass the time. They were a heartbeat of family life, a reminder of how storytelling, music, and imagination could bring people closer, one broadcast at a time. Picture a sunny afternoon in a small 1950s American town. Children on bicycles ring the bell as they pedal past, and the scent of sugar, vanilla, and fresh coffee drifts through the air. That smell leads them straight to the neighborhood soda fountain, nestled in the corner of the local diner or drugstore. These fountains weren't just places to grab a sweet treat, they were a social hub, a gathering place where the entire community seemed to converge. Stepping inside, you'd be greeted by shiny chrome counters, high stools, and the gentle hiss of the soda spigot. Glass jars filled with colorful candies lined the shelves, and the bartender, or soda jerk as they were called, would expertly craft ice cream sodas, sundaes, and phosphates with a flourish. Teenagers lingered over cherry cokes, whispering secrets and sharing laughter, while children marveled at banana splits piled high with whipped cream and sprinkles. Even adults couldn't resist. A quick root beer float became a sweet escape from the daily routine. The soda fountain was more than just a treat. It was an experience. The clink of glassware, the rhythmic churn of ice cream machines, and the hum of friendly conversation created a warm, inviting atmosphere. Families came together here after church, friends caught up on the latest news, and young couples found their first opportunities for dates away from the eyes of chaperones. Everyone knew everyone else, and the soda fountain was a place where memories were made, one malt or milkshake at a time. These gatherings weren't rushed. You didn't just grab a drink and go. People lingered, savoring both the flavors and the sense of community. In an era before smartphones and streaming, the soda fountain offered connection, laughter, and the simple joy of being part of something familiar and comforting. By the late 1960s and 1970s, chain fast food restaurants and changing lifestyles began to replace these neighborhood gyms. Many closed, leaving behind only memories of chrome counters, clinking glasses, and sweet treats that brought joy to every generation. So next time you sip a soda or enjoy an ice cream float, think back to those neighborhood fountains where life was slower, the conversations were real, and every visit felt like a celebration of community. It wasn't just soda, it was the heartbeat of small-town America. Close your eyes and picture a sunny morning in 1950s America. The backyard is alive with activity, the scent of freshly cut grass mingling with the crisp smell of linens drying in the breeze. Every house has one, a sturdy clothesline stretching across the yard, sometimes held up by metal poles, sometimes anchored to a tree. On it hang freshly washed shirts, dresses, sheets, and socks, fluttering like flags in the wind. For families back then, hanging laundry wasn't just a chore, it was part of daily life. Mothers carried baskets overflowing with warm, soap-scented clothes, carefully pinning each item to the line. The rhythm of clothespins snapping and the gentle swish of fabric in the wind marked a simple, comforting pattern to the day. Children often helped, learning responsibility while enjoying playful moments chasing each other between the hanging garments. There was a magic in the process. The sun warmed the sheets, giving them a softness and smell that no dryer could replicate. Freshly dried clothes carried the unmistakable aroma of sunlight and air, a scent that became synonymous with home. Neighbors often paused for a chat over the fence, discussing recipes, family news, or the latest neighborhood happenings, making the clothesline a subtle but vital thread in the social fabric of the community. Clotheslines also reflected an era of sustainability long before the term existed. There were no electric dryers humming away, no plastic wrappers or disposable conveniences, just nature, a little effort, and patience. Every garment hung with care, and every breeze helped dry it naturally, giving families a small daily ritual that was both practical and satisfying. By the 1970s and 1980s, electric dryers became common, and clotheslines slowly disappeared from backyards. Today, they are a rare sight, mostly found in nostalgic photos or in rural homes, evoking memories of a slower, simpler life. For those who remember them, the image of colorful laundry swaying gently in the sunlight is inseparable from childhood, family, and the small joys of everyday life. So, next time you fold freshly washed clothes, take a moment to imagine them hanging on a backyard clothesline, dancing in the sun, carrying the scent of home and the rhythm of a time when life moved just a little slower, and every day had its own gentle pattern.